The wind howled across the open plains as David Carson, a poor rancher with more grit than luck, tightened the worn rope around his last remaining bale of hay, wondering how long he could keep his dying ranch alive. He never imagined that by sundown his life would collide with two towering Apache sisters who would change everything he thought he knew about courage, compassion, and destiny. David had lived his whole life on the edge of survival. His small ranch barely produced enough to feed him, let alone the few animals he managed to keep alive through droughts and storms, and though poverty clung to him like dust, he still possessed a heart that refused to harden, even when the world gave him every reason to become bitter. That morning, while riding along the far ridge searching for a lost calf, he heard a faint, agonizing cry carried through the cold wind, the kind of cry no animal could make, raw, human, desperate. He didn't hesitate for a second, digging his heels into his horse's sides as he followed the sound down into a ravine where a massive fallen tree had shattered into splinters. There beneath it lay two enormous Apache women and sisters, clearly warriors by their braided hair, carved jewelry, and broad shoulders, but now trembling, bloodied, and trapped beneath branches too heavy for even 5 men to lift. They towered even while lying down, each easily over 7 feet tall, their muscles once powerful but now crushed by the weight pinning them. Their eyes widened when they saw the rancher, fear, suspicion, and disbelief flickering in their gazes. After all, their tribe had long considered white settlers untrustworthy, and David knew full well that helping them might bring trouble from both sides, but something inside him, something deeper than logic, told him that leaving them to die would stain his soul forever. He dismounted, raised his hands slowly, and told them in the gentlest voice he could muster that he was there to help, not harm. Though the elder sister, Nayeli, growled a warning for him to stay away, the younger, Tallulah, whispered through gritted teeth that their legs were crushed and they could not breathe. David acted without waiting for permission, sprinting back to his ranch for tools, returning with a crowbar, ropes, and the sheer willpower of a man who refused to watch life slip away. For hours he worked, sweat pouring, muscles shaking, as he pried, pushed, lifted, and used his horse to drag the thickest trunk away. Every inch gained felt like a battle, every heartbeat a reminder that saving them was the right thing to do, even if it cost him everything. When at last the final branch rolled aside, the sisters lay free but barely conscious, their injuries severe, their breaths shallow. David lifted them onto his wagon, struggling under their weight but refusing to give up, and brought them to his ranch, where he used what little medicine, blankets, and food he had left to nurse them through the night. He cooked the last of his beans, sacrificed the only warm hide he owned, and sat beside them until dawn, wiping their fevered brows and speaking softly even when they drifted in and out of delirium. By sunrise, Nayeli stirred first, shocked to find herself covered, warm, and alive. When she realized the rancher had given up nearly all he possessed to save them, her fierce eyes softened for the first time. Tallulah, younger and gentler, grabbed his hand with surprising tenderness and whispered that no outsider had ever shown them such mercy. But with the morning light came danger. A distant drumbeat echoed across the plains, the unmistakable signal of the Apache searching for their own. David knew what that meant. The tribe would come armed, assuming the worst, and he feared they might kill him for merely touching the sisters, let alone taking them into his home. Still, when the Apache war party arrived, more than 30 warriors on horseback, faces painted, weapons drawn, David stepped outside and stood between them and the sisters, unarmed, trembling but determined, refusing to let fear drive him to run or hide. The warriors circled him like wolves around a lone deer, shouting accusations, demanding explanations, and preparing to strike, until suddenly a deep voice thundered for silence. Chief Hakan, the father of the two sisters, dismounted with the authority of a king and eyed David with cold suspicion. Before the rancher could speak, Tallulah forced herself to stand on unsteady legs and cried out that he had saved their lives when no one else was there. Nayeli added, with a warrior's pride, that the rancher had shown more honor than many trained fighters. The entire tribe fell silent as Chief Hakan knelt beside David, searching his eyes for truth, and in that moment something shifted. Perhaps it was the humility in David's posture, or the exhaustion etched into his face, or the simple fact that he did not ask for reward or praise. After a long pause, the chief ordered his warriors to lower their weapons, and instead of punishing David, he invited him to their camp for a ceremony of gratitude. David, bewildered and relieved, followed the warriors as they carried the sisters home. When they arrived, the entire tribe gathered around a blazing fire, whispering in awe at the tale of a poor rancher who risked everything to save two of their strongest. Chief Hakan stepped forward, placing a hand on David's shoulder, and announced that their tribe owed the rancher a debt that could not be repaid with words. The next morning, the chief made a decision that stunned everyone, one that altered the future of both the tribe and David's failing ranch. Instead of rewarding him with gold or weapons, he offered something far more valuable: protection, partnership, and the bond of family. He declared that from that day forward, the Apache tribe would help David rebuild his ranch, providing workers, tools, water channels, and livestock. Because a man who saved warriors was worthy of standing among them not as an outsider, but as a brother. The warriors who once looked at David with suspicion now rode to his ranch with tools and lumber. The women brought food, herbs, and blankets. The children played around his horses, filling the silent land with laughter for the first time in years. Under their guidance, the ranch flourished, fields turned green, animals grew strong, and water flowed in places David once believed hopeless. But what touched him most was the quiet companionship of the two giant sisters. Nayeli trained him in survival skills, teaching him how to track, hunt, and red the land, while Tallulah often helped around the ranch, her presence gentle, steady, and deeply grateful. Over time, David realized that true wealth wasn't measured in cattle or money, but in the hearts that stood beside him when he needed them most. What began as a desperate rescue became an unbreakable alliance, a merging of worlds once divided by fear, transformed instead by compassion. The day David stood on his now thriving ranch and watched the Apache tribe laughing, sharing food, and helping him raise a new barn, he felt his throat tighten with overwhelming gratitude. He understood that kindness, given freely in the darkest moment, had returned to him multiplied beyond measure. Chief Hawken approached him, placed a carved necklace around his neck, a symbol of brotherhood, and said, "One act of courage can change the fate of many. You saved my daughters, and in doing so, you healed more than you know." Tears filled David's eyes as he realized the truth of those words. Kindness had bridged a divide that history itself once failed to mend. From that day forward, the ranch was no longer just his, it was a shared home, a sanctuary built from compassion, courage, and the simple belief that even the poorest among us can change the world with a single act of selfless humanity. And every evening, as the sun dipped behind the horizon and the plains glowed gold, David looked toward the Apache camp and felt a deep warmth spread through his chest, knowing that the world becomes a better place every time a human heart chooses compassion over fear, generosity over pride, and hope over despair, a truth he carried for the rest of his life, forever grateful that a single moment of kindness, directed toward two giant Apache sisters, had changed everything, not just for them, but for everyone who witnessed its quiet, powerful light.